Pennsylvania 1830, we see a man named Augustus Landor who is a private detective. He meets military Captain Hitchcock, the second in charge at West Point USA Military Academy. Hitchcock tells him that Superintendent Thayer wants to see him for a case. Landor says, "I don't want to come," and Hitchcock tells him this case is very critical and it's a question of respect. Landor agrees and they leave for the academy. Landor is a widower as his wife died 2 years ago and his daughter also left him. He meets with Thayer, who apologizes for his loss. They tell him that the case is related to one of the cadets, a second-year student named Leroy Fry who hanged himself last night. Landor says it is a matter of corner, but Hitchcock tells him someone violated Fry's body in the hospital. Landor says maybe somebody hits a prank with his body. Hitchcock says it wasn't a prank, but Fry's heart was craved from his chest. Landor asks Dr. Marquis how a person can do this with any specialty. The doctor tells him it's done with a sharp blade so the heart can't be harmed. Landor asks about heart preservation and the doctor says it can be preserved in a container or wrapped in muslin. Outside, Thayer and Landor are noticed by a cadet named Alan Poe. Thayer asks Landor to save the honor of the U.S. Military Academy. After that, they go to see the place of the incident where Landor talks security guard who found Fry's body. The guard says after ending his duty he goes to the guard room by Fort Clinton. Landor asks him why you changed your way, and the guard says that he heard something suspicious. At first, it looked like an animal was trapped, but when he came close he saw Fry hanged and his feet touching the ground. Landor asks him, "Did you saw anyone else around?" and the guard says, "No sir," and leaves. Landor sees Fry's body, which shows that the rope grabbed at him like someone murdered him. The doctor and the others were also shocked to see. Landor also finds a note in his hands which is torn and isn't showing anything clear. Then, Hitchcock tells him some rules like not drinking during the case, informing him first, and not sharing any information with outsiders. Landor again checks the incident's place where he meets with Alan Poe. Landor asks, "What can I do for you?" and Poe says, "I want to tell you some information related to the case." Landor asks him to speak and Poe only says, "The man you are looking for is a poet," and leaves. Landor investigates the hospital guard, and he says nothing happens until an officer relieves me of the duty. Landor asks him about the man's whereabouts. The guard tells him that because of the darkness I could not see his face, but his badge was hanging on his uniform. He goes into the bar and drinks, saying Fukin rules. A bar woman named Patsy talks to Landor about Fry's death and indicates toward Poe. Landor becomes curious to see him and Poe says, "Captain hardly knows I'm at the academy." They drink and Landor asks how he knows that a man who cut Fry's heart is a poet. Poe says the heart is a symbol and if we take away the symbol there is nothing left except a fistful of muscle. Now, to remove a man's heart is to traffic in a symbol and this can only be done by a poet. Landor says that then he would be a ruthless poet. Poe reads a song line and a Bible verse, "Create in me a clean heart," and Landor says then we might be seeking a religious maniac. Poe denies this and says that I am a poet myself, but Landor says that I have no love for poetry. He starts to leave and Poe tells him to investigate Loughborough as he was Fry's roommate and they had a falling out some time ago. Hitchcock and Landor ask Loughborough about his relationship with Fry. He tells them we have some misconceptions as he gained friendship with bad guys. As Landor says the bad guys are cadets, Hitchcock angrily asks why you didn't tell me first. The boy seems nervous as he doesn't know much and Landor tells him to leave. Then they ask Cadet Stoddard about Fry and he says, "I did see Fry late on the night near the barracks. He didn't notice anything in his hands and when I asked Fry where is he going he said necessary business." As the cadet leaves, the guard comes inside to give Hitchcock a note. He is shocked to read that a cow and sheep have been murdered in Cold Spring and their hearts removed. Hitchcock orders cadets to remain inside the academy as the fear is rising. Poe arrives and informs Landor that I have added the words written on the slip which means meet me by the river. Now, they start thinking it is the work of a woman which Landor already seeks. This can be done only by those who believe in witchcraft to remove their sorrows with the help of Satan. Poe says one day when he was writing he saw a beautiful woman full of sorrow. Matching the Fry's note, they conclude the killer wants to meet him at the lake and tell him not too late, which confirms the killer was a woman. Landor is in a relationship with Patsy and she talks about Poe, saying he is a brilliant and interesting boy. Landor looks at the doctor's tools and sees a bowl like the one the doctor explained is used to keep the heart alive. Poe reads Landor's note and tells him to come to the ice house, while Landor is already there. Landor notices that the room is used for dark magic and Poe arrives. Landor makes marks on his dairy and concludes the killer brought Fry's heart here to complete the ritual. Landor and Poe go to Professor Pepe to seek information about witchcraft. Seeing the drawings, Pepe asks Poe to read a book written by a witch hunter. Pepe says that apart from this book, it would be better to take a book by Henry Lee Clerk, which has now disappeared. Pio reads the blood of an unclean animal and the heart of an unbaptized child, and the heart of a human being hanged on a noose, to communicate with witches and devils. Poe meets some boys from the academy to further investigate, and they ask him to come with them. Poe feigns illness, and takes leave from his duties and goes straight to the lander. Poe finds a book in his closet that Landor says was read by his daughter Maddie, who has now run away from him. Landor asks him about work, and Poe says the doctor's son, Artemis, who I have a meeting with today, so I'll try to understand something. At night, Poe meets with Ballinger, Artemis, and Stoddard to find more information on Fry. Ballinger says that Fry and Artemis' sister were close for a long time, and then they had a fight, which makes Artemis angry. After the party is over, Poe returns to the academy and is captured by Captain Hitchcock. Hitchcock says, "Why are you out in curfews at this time of night?" and scolds Poe to go inside. Landor wakes up to the sound of his daughter rustling her clothes. Landor approaches her and she disappears because it was a trick of his eyes. During Fry's funeral, Fry's mother gives Landor a diary. Poe goes to the doctor's house and sees his daughter Lee playing the piano. After that, Poe asks Lee to meet him at the graveyard and she agrees. They both meet at the cemetery, and while talking, Lee suddenly gets a seizure attack but recovers after a while. At night, Ballinger attacks Poe and tells him to stay away from Lee. Luckily, Landor arrives and rescues Poe. The next morning, the captain receives news that Ballinger is missing, and the captain goes with his team to find him. There in the forest, they find Ballinger's body and his heart is also missing. The captain gets angry at Landor because Fry's case is still unsolved and another murder has been committed. The captain's fate goes to Poe because he had a previous fight with Ballinger, and so Poe fought with Fry the night before his death. Landor meets Poe and asks him to tell everything so he can save him from going to jail. Poe says, "Everyone in this academy has done bad to me, but I never thought of killing anyone." Landor and Poe begin to suspect the family of Dr. Daniel Marquis, who was first brought into the investigation to perform the autopsy on Fry. Particular suspicion is placed on his son Artemis and his daughter Lee. Landor finds an old officer's uniform. A man impersonating an officer had been involved in the mutilation of Fry's body. Landor confronts Dr. Marquis, who admits that he had resorted to black magic to cure Lee of her seizures, and initially she appeared to improve. Poe is enchanted by Lee and volunteers to do whatever she wants. However, he is drugged and wakes to find that Artemis and Lee are about to cut out his heart, following the ritual to cure Lee. Landor manages to arrive in time to rescue Poe, but the building catches fire and Lee and Artemis die. Thinking that the case is now solved, the military thanks Landor for his service. However, after recovering from his near-death experience, Poe confronts Landor with his realization that the handwriting on the note fragment found in Fry's hand matches that of Landor. Threading together all the information that he has gathered, it becomes apparent that Landor was in fact the killer of the cadets. 2 years previously, Landor's daughter Maddie was raped by Fry, Ballinger, and Stoddard after attending her first ball. Traumatized by the experience, she later killed herself by jumping off a cliff. Landor did not disclose this to anyone, but pretended that she had run away. Distraught, Landor set out to avenge his daughter. He left the note for Fry, luring him to a lonely spot before hanging him. However, a patrol happened to walk by, so Landor was forced to leave the body there. Lee and Artemis later stole the heart for their ritual. After killing Ballinger, Landor mutilated his corpse to make it appear that the cadet had been murdered by the same madman who had desecrated Fry's body. Poe tells Landor he has 2 notes with handwriting samples that can link Landor directly to the murders, but before leaving, Poe burns them. Landor is later seen standing at the cliff where his daughter leaped to her death. He lets her hair ribbon float away in the wind, saying, "Rest, my love." Thanks for watching, and make sure to press the subscribe button for more amazing videos.